Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Everybody's sick lately. Everybody. Like, so thankfully, I'm a shut-in. I'm healthy. Oh, I feel good. Sorry,
Dan. You're all safe because it's just you and Jill.
I know. You have no like little germ fest that just run around.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot easier to not get sick when you don't have kids going around a bunch of other kids that are sick all the time.
Yes.
COVID 2020, like masks were obviously annoying and nobody enjoyed them. I tell you what though, we didn't get sick at all that year because because everybody had masks on. They weren't allowed to be around each other. Yeah. Like, was it very irritating to live that way? Yes. But sometimes am I like, you remember when Cora was in kindergarten?
I don't think we can attribute it just to masks. I think everybody was more aware of like washing their hands.
No, because you also had to stay away.
In Florida, it was pretty much the same. I've had COVID like fucking 3 times.
Dude, I'm on like, I think I've had it 9 or 10 times. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. That's because the kids bring everything into the house. So, I'm excited. This just came to us. Danica doesn't feel good, guys. So, and I are keeping up the energy. So you guys are in trouble. But Danica feels it coming on. It's coming for her.
Oh, it's coming. I know it is because my youngest had the stomach bug. Well, no, it started with Matt. Matt had it and it was like a 3-day thing. He had it really bad. And then like,
how long ago?
This was, okay, so we were recovering last weekend. We were on recovery, although Jada was vomiting last weekend. So Matt, he was out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it's about a week. But then he was fine. And then Jada got it. And there's no way that I wasn't exposed because she threw up in her bed and I had to like handle it and like pick it up. So I know I was definitely exposed. But then I thought I was in the clear because I was like, oh my gosh, my immune system tells me all the time, like, we don't have time we are dealing with type 1 diabetes. We don't have time for like a stomach bug. That's just like beneath us. So I always feel like I'm not going to get sick. But today has been like, something is off.
Today is the day.
Today is the day. So much like my belly's cramping, but so much so that I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I'm going to go for a walk, maybe some fresh air. I'll get like steps in. I'll go for a walk, put on my jacket, everything. I ended up passing out on the couch in jacket, hat on, passing out on the couch. I don't take naps. And that's when I know that my body is like, we're going to hit you. We're going to hit you hard.
Yeah. Those are my favorite days.
Are
like
they?
Nap days? Oh my God. Those are like a thing of beauty.
You can do that. Like, I almost get mad at naps because I'm like, fuck, there's so much I had to do during that time. And those monsters are going to be here any second.
That's how I felt. But also, so my blood sugar, I was telling you guys, I lowered my my basal rate. So every hour my meter sends me insulin every hour, a certain amount. So 0.95 units every hour. It will give it to me. And then I bolus for what I'm going to eat. I haven't done one bolus today. So no boluses of insulin. I've just ride out my basal and I've lowered my basal to 0.8 units. And I have had 5 alarms go off because it like went down to 47 and then right now it's 68. And if I send you like a screenshot, it's like this straight line right above red. Red means you're really low. But I've had banana, mango, crackers, cereal, like all the carbohydrates without any, which doesn't make sense for a type 1 diabetic, like all the carbs, nothing else to help it digest, all like no insulin. So I know that something is brewing and something's happening because this has happened before where I had a stomach bug and I was like downing all the things and then I ended up running to the bathroom.
So before we get too into it, we're talking about how to manage your fitness while you're sick, by the
I
way.
know.
Um, I'm like, I would have just gone for hours.
Well, manage your fitness. I took a day off. I was able to, like, I did not feel good. I had my workout scheduled. And then I even tried to pivot. Like, I even tried to say, okay, maybe I don't go to the gym. Maybe I just go for a walk outside. And I even tried to like get myself ready, like fresh air. It should be fine. Nothing's actually happening. But your body will tell you, like in the grand scheme of things, a nap was probably much better for my body than going outside for a walk. And my body really did tell me that. I like got all ready to go. And that's okay. Like I feel like many people are like, oh, but either they go, I have to push through and I'm just going to keep going, or they ride it out for like a week and a half, saying that like they've been sick for a week and a half when it was only like a sniffle. But you should listen to your body. Like today, I really had to say, in the grand picture, like big picture, this one day isn't going to do anything. If anything, it's going to help me so that I'm better tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday.
No, makes too much sense. I don't like it.
Me neither. Yeah.
I mean, I think it is
Fine.
hard for people to know that boundary, kind
Yeah.
of, right? Especially as people are getting like newer into it, which is why like a lot of the times I hesitate to share if I'm like sick or if I'm sick and then I do something, like I almost don't want to say anything because I definitely will cross the boundary 9 times out of 10
Yeah.
and push it too far. Where like so if I'm napping, I'm really sick. Like at that point, I probably should have given in like 5 or 6 days ago. Which isn't better. But like for me, I've kind of pushed like where that boundary is because of kids and because of just so much going on. I know there's usually, we talked about this like a month ago, right? I had looked it up and there was like a chart with our number of kids in the house. It's likely that we have at least like 2 to 3 viruses in at least 2 to 3 people at all times, like throughout. And then they each last about 4 to 6 weeks. And so the likelihood of them overlapping throughout the year is just there. So
Mhm.
I kind of plan on the fact like, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I better try and get whatever I can do today, like that I'm up for. Um, but then that has definitely pushed me into places where I'm sure there's colds that lingered longer and stuff because I didn't give in sooner. So I think trying to figure out where that is, like, because for me, I'm like, well, I don't want to end up like, I don't want to miss stuff if I don't have to. But I know that there's also other people where, kind of like you said, Danica, where they'll have like a runny nose or something. And then they're like, okay, well, I got to wait till this goes away.
Whoa, whoa. Hey now, Judgy McJudgerton.
No, listen, sometimes I will like talk to people, and I'm not like saying clients, I'm saying like people I know in person or whatever, where I'm like, it is the dusty, blowy season in Colorado. You're going to be congested and have a runny nose for like 4 months. Like, we can't, or like if it's cold outside, and then people will say, like, oh, well, I haven't worked out since September because it's been cold. I'm like, well, we got to do something about that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
also
I
think
think
people
that's
need
different though.
to move. People should move a little tiny bit and test, I think, test the waters. Like
Right.
to say, well, I might have a cold, I might be congested, but sometimes going outside helps with that. And like you're able to breathe a little bit better, or it loosens things up a little bit more. And you're able to kind of get that sunshine as opposed to staying inside of a box where like that sickness is just kind of lingering around and you're not circulating the air.
But it's my friend, and I want to spend time with my friend.
That sickness, oh
Yeah.
Lord, we could go there.
Look,
No one should be friends with a sickness.
look, I'm down with the
I'm with
sickness,
the
okay?
sickness.
That was my childhood.
I literally set that up.
Have you heard the one where they sing it like old timey Oh my God. It sounds like 50s music.
I mean, you got to recognize we're old, and so we've all been
I have to send it
exposed
to
to
you
all
now.
of it at this point.
I'll find you the reel.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think err on the side of caution, but are you,
Yeah.
Stephen, are you the opposite where you're like, are you gonna, oh, wait, it might turn into something. I should wait.
all right. So if I have something wrong with my stomach, I am a bitch. I
Mm.
am a little bitch. I don't want to hear about it. I ain't gonna be brave. My tum tum don't feel good.
You have like a
Like,
totally
nope.
different situation there, though.
Well, yeah. So because we got the flu um, over the God, I want to say holidays, but it's like frickin' March now, over the Christmas break when we were up at my in-laws, and it made me nauseous. And I spent because with my stomach surgery, I cannot physically vomit.
Right.
So I was sitting in the bathroom dry heaving for like 15 minutes straight. I was like, fuck this. This blows. This totally sucks ass. I was like, I'm glad my surgery is still working and doing its thing, but this sucks. Um, if it's going out the other end, whatever, dude. No biggie.
Yeah.
But stomach issues, I don't play around with. And I think there's a couple schools of thought here. I'm probably more in that middle ground, like Danica, where I'm like, you should probably try and get some steps. You should get some sunlight, get some fresh air, walk. Like those things are good for you anyways, right?
Yeah.
So unless you're like deathbed kind of sick, I like seeing some sort of like very low intensity, like lifestyle movement based stuff. I think that's a beautiful call and a really great thing to do. But you know, when I was getting into the sport, they would always say if the cold is above the shoulders, you're fuck good to go. If it's
Right.
below the shoulders, stay home. And I was like, man, cool. My cold is above the shoulders, but now I'm gonna go give my above the shoulders cold to everybody at the gym.
Right.
And I've always been cognizant and aware of that. So like if I'm just going to like Paul's garage gym to work out, cool, I don't care. Paul gets sick with me, buddy. But Paul's like, you
Take
bastard.
him out.
He has kids. I'll blame it on them.
There you go.
But like going to the gym, and the gym I go to is really busy. There's always a lot of people around. I'm like, I always have that thought, like, do I feel like I'm over it enough to where I'm not gonna have to feel like an a-hole for getting everybody else sick?
Yeah.
And so that's normally where I try and kind of find that middle ground. But typically, if I'm sick, I will try and get some outdoor activity and movement. But I'll normally lay off the gym and the weights, especially if I'm sick enough to like. So GI stuff, I feel like trash. I have no energy. I'm tired. I'm not strong anyways. So what's the point of me going to try and force a shitty ass lift where I'm going to be more apt to get injured or hurt myself? No, it doesn't make sense. I'll stay home, and normally those GI bugs are gone within less than a week. I'll just wait that out. You know, the head colds, play it by ear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I wouldn't with any GI stuff, I'm always like, I'm out. I'm good. I don't need to look at a weight. I don't need to like maybe I'll try to walk, but I never push myself. With congestion or any cold stuff, it's very similar to what you said. I will try to get movement because I also know that that benefits me. Like it helps to clear things out and it helps to like loosen up the mucus a little bit more to allow it to kind of get out of me and have a decongesting kind of airflow, right? So that, but at the same time, I cannot stand when people come to the gym that are sneezing and hacking and coughing and you know that they should have just waited it out.
Yeah.
Or and like you don't even want to applaud them. Like good job for like pushing through to get here.
Right.
Because you can tell when a cough is like, you probably shouldn't. Like you probably should have just waited at least one more day. Unless it's like a tickling cough, then like excuse yourself. But if it's like a and then coughing all the time, then you know.
Yeah. I
Wait,
think
where are your coughs tickling you at? Because I don't think mine tickle me.
No, some people have like a lingering annoying cough. Like and I understand that. Like Matt, for instance, he always gets stuck with bronchitis whenever he gets sick.
yeah.
Not GI stuff, but he gets stuck with bronchitis. So he has this like almost like a deep, deep smoker's cough, but it's a daily thing. And it's been like checked out and everything. But when he coughs, people would be like, you got to go get that tested. Like that sounds like, I don't know if tuberculosis is coming around, but like you need to go get that shit tested. It doesn't sound good. So like I feel for him because he'll be completely fine. And then all of a sudden he's like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't sound good. And tickles, I know that people had like a lingering cough after COVID. A lot of people that I have spoken to have had just like this lingering, annoying cough with no other thing. They're not blowing their nose, they're not like really nasally or have a headache or anything like that. So that's what I mean by like a tickling, annoying, lingering cough.
Yeah. I mean,
Christina got the joke.
gyms are supposed to
Who's
be
tickling
like
your esophagus?
more disgusting than like toilet seats. Like gyms in general are just dirty anyways. And so I mean, if you see somebody there who's just like gross, it's like, why are you doing this to yourself? But I feel like going back to when things first reopened, like I remember going back to the gym and stuff years ago. And like if you did have one of those coughs where it was just like, oh, I swallowed my water wrong, then you're like like trying to cover it. It wasn't me. Like I'm not the sick one. And you know, people now like you'll see some in there and they're just like gross. And I'm like, man, clean up after yourself when it comes to that stuff. That's where like I forget about that because we have a home gym. And so like if I'm sick and I say I'm gonna go try and like do something, then I'm probably popping down into the garage and maybe giving it a shot. But weights, like going with what you guys said, that's usually at the like the end of my list of like ramping back up into normalcy after being sick. It's not the first thing I'm gonna jump back to because I feel like if you can't breathe, and like you're sneezing and all of that kind of stuff, you got a runny nose. Like the last thing you want to be doing is trying to go like heavy deadlifts or something. But the cardio with some congestion, I'm telling you, that is my go-to. Like I will go do like a light jog just to try and see if it'll drain me out. And after like 6 minutes, I'll be good to go. And then I can chill. The bad part is it'll usually come back not long after, but I like lean on the fact that I get that little bit of time where I'm like, okay, now I feel better. But I think the getting outside part is big. And so I know a lot of people are asking this. I've seen it in the group because there's still, it seems like it's starting to get less though for everybody. Like we're not seeing as many people. I feel like the population of sick people like 3 weeks ago, I feel like was a lot higher amongst clients and the group.
I mean, I got a lot right now that got sick at the Arnold. So they came back from the Arnold and they're like, oh, dying.
Yeah, I feel like
And some still are dying from it.
Yeah, January and February kicked my roster's ass for the most part. Is when it ran through. And so we would talk a lot about like how to ease into that stuff. And then the stomach bug, I've seen two people recently in the Facebook group who were posting about like the fluctuations with their weight and stuff like that and like what they should expect afterwards. And so at one point I shared my spreadsheet of like weigh-ins and stuff after I got norovirus back in January. I think it was like end of January. And so I got it twice, once in December, once in January. The first time I got it, I was throwing up the whole time. The second time I got it, it was the opposite end. And I can't say which one was worse. And so with the second round, I had all of my weigh-ins for that. And I went from, I think I was chilling at like 144, 145, and then dropped all the way down to like 136 or 137 from how sick and dehydrated I was. And then it took me probably 6 or 7 days to get back to like my normal calorie intake. And even with that, it seemed like there was a bit of a lag where for a while the weight stayed lower. But of course I didn't trust it because I knew it was because I was dehydrated. And then all of a sudden it like popped right back up to where like I had been before I got sick, which made sense to me. And then it was like, okay, well now we're kind of back into like a normal place. But I had seen people in the group where they were talking about it and they were getting very freaked out and they wanted to stay at like next to no food in reaction to the weight now moving. They were thinking they needed to move their deficit numbers. And so what would you guys tell people if they were in a deficit and then they got sick with like a stomach virus or something that caused big weight fluctuations and now they're freaking out? What are you going to tell them?
Oh, I would say ease your way back into where you started prior to. So like before you got sick, whatever those macros were, that's where I want you to slowly get to. I always think of it as like scratch, I'll be like, scratch that week. We need to do like we need to pretend like that week didn't it did happen and we can acknowledge it and everything, but we need to get back to like that
Ooh,
base.
were you about to just repress some weeks of sickness and your feelings? Were you about to shove
Yeah.
those into a little emotional ball and down to
We're
hide
going to
inside
pretend it
yourself?
didn't happen. And she said, no, we can't pretend. We have to accept it. The sickness happened. We have to
Yeah.
acknowledge it and accept
Acknowledge
it.
it.
You're the mindset coach, Danica.
Acknowledge,
Jesus.
accept.
See how well
No.
trained we are?
I love that. But I do tell them we can't make adjustments based off of an inconsistent week. So like whether that is throwing up, dehydration, whatever that may be, we need to get back to that baseline so then we can adjust from there. So like get your body back to that base that we were at slowly and steadily, and then we'll continue course. I understand that people are probably freaking out too, just given the timeline.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the 90-day challenge, I think that makes sense that you'd be like, oh my gosh, but look at the big drop. But then you have to kind of zoom out and say, realistically, though, that's not fat loss, really. That's a lot of just water weight. And like get yourself back to a strong baseline first, get your belly back, like digestion back in order. And then we can take those measurements and like manipulate things after we have that stronger baseline.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I'm too different. Um, I always try and encourage everybody that like if you're sick, at least try and hit your protein intake. I don't give a shit if it's like
Yeah.
protein shakes, whatever. All of our enzymes in the body are made out of proteins. So having adequate protein to make sure that our body can hopefully make as many enzymes as possible. So maybe we can kick the cold out a little bit quicker, feel a little bit better for what's realistic. Unfortunately, I live in the real world and I understand that if you're throwing up everything, it might be pretty damn hard to get enough protein in. So protein I try and keep there, and the same with the rest of the food. Like whatever you can do, let's do that. And same thing. I'm right back to normal macros the next week, but I'm also like talking about why weight's down, all the different reasons. Like, okay, cool. We haven't been training for the past week. That means you're going to have less training inflammation, right? So there's a little bit less water weight and inflammatory response there, probably. So expect that you're going to have some weight regain probably from that. If you've been really dehydrated because you can't keep anything down or you can't keep anything in, right? You're going to be super dehydrated because of that. And so I want you to probably focus on maybe getting some more stuff like Gatorade, salting your foods a little bit more heavily at first. We want to see weight come back. We have to delineate between weight loss and fat loss. They are not the same thing. I know we like to equate them, but they're not quite equal. So I like to really talk about that. And then I also am very, very aware of the approach back into training because a lot of times, even though you're over the sickness, you're digesting things well again, if you've had a week or more off of the gym, you will lose strength, not muscle, again, delineation, but you will likely lose strength. So it's going to take you a few weeks to get stronger again, but you might just not feel quite right again. Maybe your sodium's still low or whatever. It just might not be there. So I want everybody to be really aware of the fact that I want you to warm up very intentfully. I want you to like really be aware of how your warm-up sets are feeling. And then if you're like, oh, cool, well, I normally hit 200 on this, but 160 feels like 200 normally feels. I want you to stay at 160. I don't want you to push that any harder. Like it will come back and it will come back fairly quickly. And I think this is what this belief that if I stop doing it for even a little bit, if I don't use it, I'll lose it. It's 40-year-old virgin, right? I'm that guy. Is it true? If you don't use it, you will lose it? Wait, is that a serious question? But it is. It's a serious question for a lot of people. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I don't want to lose my gains. I don't want to lose the muscle I've tried so hard to get. You don't. Like the only way you really lose muscle and quickly is like after a surgery when, oh, man, my quad looked like my calf after like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I was so sad. I was like, I've spent a fucking decade trying to build this. It was just barely passable. Now it sucks again.
Is your other quad like, yeah, motherfucker?
Yeah, and
Look
the
at
other quad
me.
looked great. I was like, yeah, this one's still good. And then I had a little teeny quad on the other one. I was like, I hate my
This
life.
is what you could be.
So like super big, intensive like surgeries or injuries, those kind of things can maybe do it. But it's really because you can't use it, right? Like it was immobilized. There was no using any of that.
Yeah.
That immobilization and no usage at all is what creates fast muscle loss. If you're walking, moving, cooking, like shit takes time. So I think it's also really important to kind of reiterate you're not going to lose it all, right? We will get the strength back fairly quickly. That's okay. If we need to take that time off, it's better that we do that than risk injury because we're trying to force something. Or we just get crappy training for a longer amount of time instead of taking a few days off when it would have been an easy fix. You know, let's do those smart things, feel better. Now everything is better because
Yeah.
it also blows working out sick. Like that sucks.
I think that's one of the important things to kind of pay attention to. Like, also, is that if you are pushing a workout or activity, like whatever it is, if it's, and not calling in sick or it's continuing to do like shit around the house or whatever, like, is it destroying you? And then when you're done, you're like, oh my God, I have to go lay down in bed. I can do nothing else for the rest of the day. That was probably a bad decision. We probably need to pull back. If it's something like where I had said, if I go for a jog, sometimes it'll clear me out and then the congestion might come back. But overall, I still like feel pretty good about my decision. Then like I say, go ahead and add in like that level of movement for you, like what gets you there. But paying attention to that is really important because, and in general, like I've been talking to people about this, about just their training loads across the board. Like if your workouts, like we want them to be challenging, but things shouldn't be going so far that you are completely donezo at that point. Like you've used 90% of your energy for the day. Now you can barely fucking survive for the rest of it. And we're not doing any extra. You should still want to do things like take your dog for a walk or like be able to fold laundry and like get life done.
I hate that saying where it's like, if you're not crawling out of the gym, you didn't do leg day, right? I was like, what? I want to break my legs? No, I don't want to go mafia style, especially not on myself. I'm like, maybe I can break somebody else's legs. I don't want to break mine.
I think people who share that stuff haven't actually done that, maybe. Because like, when you do go to leave the gym and it's been a leg day and you take like that one wrong stair or something and you feel just how much you've done and it's like, oh man, that's gonna suck. In like 3 hours, I did too much. And it felt like a good idea. And then you're like, yeah, I've ruined the next 3 days of my life.
Well, remember, my last car was a manual. So, like, I had that when I was doing powerlifting, and I'd have like AMRAPs at 400 plus for squats, and I'd have AMRAPs at like 500 plus for deadlifts and shit. And then I had to hit that clutch and deal with it on the way home. Ugh. Um, but I could at least do that. I couldn't do those workouts and do that anymore. Um, but I could do that, right? If you literally can't walk, that's a problem, you know? And it's this hard dynamic because I think a lot of people watch enhanced bodybuilders, enhanced athletes, and they want to take some of the things that they're doing and utilize them themselves. And natural athletes just do not have the recovery ability to keep up with that stuff.
Right.
And I, I would say there is a high likelihood if there's somebody who has what you would consider a lot of muscle or a really crazy physique, because I know I don't fall into this category, they might very well be enhanced. There's a pretty good chance. It's very, and that could be a normal TRT, HRT thing. Um, it could be more. It could be, out the gills. I think most of us know the out the gills ones, though, right?
Right.
So we have to train ourselves like we're ourselves. And so if you're a natural athlete, then you probably need to really be aware of, okay, what can I handle? What can I recover from? How do I manage that? Especially when you're sick. Like, because you can't handle the same stuff. You can't handle close to the same stuff typically when you're sick, especially not with GI bugs. Those things just they decimate your ability to kind of like have any energy and strength. Plus, who wants to risk shitting themselves during a workout? Like, oof, no thanks. I've been
Yeah.
close enough a couple times, and I don't need any more of that.
I mean, that's honestly after getting noro in January, I have just started getting back to feeling comfortable running outside, like for long runs and stuff like that, and being away from home because it still feels like I just had that. Like anybody who had that round of norovirus that went through the country this year, like that shit was next level.
It's
And
still making rounds, by the way.
it's crazy. Like it needs to go away. I had well, so a friend of mine is a pediatric GI nurse, and she works at the Children's Hospital here. I remember I was talking to her because, of course, I was trying to get over this stupid thing. By the way, do not take Imodium if you have norovirus and you cannot stop pooping. Imodium's not for you. After 3 days, I was like, I'm going to take some Imodium because I'm going to die if I don't stop pooping. And then next thing you know, I'm texting my friend and I was like, what's the likelihood of me actually dying of toxic megacolon? Because I've Googled and I think I'm going to die of it because I went from like running to the bathroom every 2 seconds to the next thing you know, I literally looked 7 months pregnant and just could feel myself blowing up like a balloon and was like, that was a bad choice. But
You think that it was a bad choice to take something to make you keep stuff in when your body's telling you you need to get everything out.
I had thought that like if things were moving at like a 10, then maybe the Imodium would pull it back, to like a 5, maybe like a 4. No, it was wrong. Don't do it.
Your body was on fire watch, man. It was trying to put that fire out, and you're like, here's some gas.
Man, that was the worst. But it took a very long time, even after I got back to normal food, my weight got back to normal and stuff like that. Workouts didn't feel good for quite some time. Like that replenishing process takes a bit. And I feel like people recognize that in other situations, like with travel. They'll be like, I need a day to recover or something. But we go through something like a sickness. And I mean, I get it. Obvious, like I'm always the one who's going to try and like push it with stuff. But I feel like giving yourself that space if you just know better and like it's going to take you out. Are you sick? Guys, Danica's back.
They didn't know she was gone. We weren't going to
I
say
think
anything.
I think I'm out.
You're watching the YouTube. You got to go?
I mean, I feel a lot better now. So
Oh, babe, you poor thing.
Wait, so are you out like you're done? Or you're out like we need to
I'm so,
you
like,
feel
fine.
better because you got
No.
it out?
I feel better because I got it out. Yeah.
All right. So
That
that's
that was harsh. Has this ever happened on a podcast before? Probably
you are
not.
first. I'm so proud of you.
I
We don't
know.
need to talk about the
Horrible.
details.
Now we'll always remember.
That was horrible. And my blood sugar is dropping now. It's fine.
Should you go? And then Steve and we can carry this. We got you.
Yeah.
Go eat some crackers, do your
Yes.
thing, leave your camera on, leave your camera off.
Yeah, I'm so happy I turned off the audio because that was not fun. My dog was like, "What's happening in there,
Oh, I
Mom?"
saw your dog freak out.
Did you? Yeah.
All right.
Are you okay? I
All
probably
right.
look like
So I'll tell a story. Back when I was like, I was probably 14, 15. I was in this like boot camp thing. And I was in there for skipping school. Most people were in there for like serious crimes, like dealing coke or stealing cigarette trucks, whatever, you know. So essentially, yeah,
Stealing a whole
totally, right?
truck.
Yeah, I stole a whole tobacco truck, like full of, I think it was a Marlboro truck, whatever. But I was like delivering the cigarettes. Anyways, um, so they did trips, and so one of them was like a 2 week long canoe trip on the Swanee, and we had like dehydrated food the entire time. And I came back. I literally woke up in the middle of the night, the first night after eating solid food, and threw up and crapped myself all in the bed. And I was just like crawling out of the tent, like, "Ugh." Um, man, it was rough. See, so now your story's not so bad, Danica. I got you, dog.
No, I hope everybody.
They just hosed me down. They literally just took a hose to me. That's how bad it
All right.
was.
Well, I'm actually gonna go. I love the listeners and everything, but
No, you
I'm
you
gonna
go. And
I'm
All
if
right,
I
feel
see you
better.
working out tomorrow, I'm gonna come after you.
I'm gonna keep this
Like,
on though and just put my video in.
And your mic, yeah, and then you'll be good to go.
Okay.
All right,
yeah.
go lay down, love.
All right. All our listeners have now found out my dirty secret.
That you had to be hosed off.
I'm always trying. I'm like, oh, Danica had something bad happen. I gotta say something worse so she feels better.
We gotta fill it in. We gotta fill it in.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, cool. I'll be the bad guy in comparison. I was like, all right, I'll be the gross one. Um,
Yeah.
but I
Now,
think it comes from like that underlying belief of where we were at before, of like if I take a couple days off, because we always talk lifestyle changes. We need to change our identity. We want to change our daily habits. So I think like there's this underlying belief that if we have a couple days off of that, we're not that person anymore, or like something's wrong, or we're gonna lose everything. And and that's really, I think, the biggest thing that I see that I have to battle with people when they're feeling sick and when they're not feeling good in terms of the fitness industry, life, weight loss, whatever might be going on. 'Cause it's like, no, no, no. Coach wants you to take days off of the gym. Like I've literally had people tell me they're sick, and I've gone and been like, I've deleted their workouts. Like you're not working out. Stay home. And that's literally within the past couple of weeks. I'm like, just I don't want you doing it. That workout no longer exists as far as I'm concerned. We missed it. When we're feeling better again, we start up on that day. Good to go. Good stuff. So, one, I think that there's this guilt almost that comes with it, which is weird to me because
yeah,
you didn't, it's not like you chose to get sick. You weren't like, cool, norovirus. This is going to be great. You know, people aren't doing the tapeworm diet anymore. You know, like,
I
it's not a
think that
thing.
was a thing.
I think it was at one point, but like it wasn't your fault. We didn't have any control over it. We do have control over how we can influence recovery. It doesn't control it completely, but we can influence it to either we recover quicker or slower. And I feel like forcing that normally pushes it to slower recovery, and it ends up just making things, I think, be overall a less net positive and less beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. That probably just reacting. And going with your gut feeling about it is smart. Do you have your clients reach out like immediately, or like what is your like protocol? Do you have something with them, or like how do you go about that?
Yeah, I don't give them like a you have to tell me if you're sick or anything. Um, Normally I like to think most of my clients are pretty liberal with like reaching out to me midweek if there's something that's going on. Um, sometimes I'll get back to them pretty quick. Other times if like, hey, if you message me at 9 p.m., it's all right, dude. We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, but if it's bad enough that they have to reach out to me, it's normally bad enough to mean that we need to take a day off and we need to recover.
Yeah.
If it was not a big enough deal to where you even felt like it needed to get mentioned, all right, we might be okay. Because if it's not a big enough deal to even mention it, it definitely isn't impacting you that much. And if it is, then it's probably big enough of a deal for you to mention it.
Yeah. If somebody says something to me, then 100% my response is going to be you need to rest and take care of yourself. Try and get protein, fruits, vegetables, do what you can. And like, and then just like Danica said before, when it comes to check-ins for maybe even, maybe we talk midweek and then they check in with me and we're going over stuff. I'm almost never going to make an adjustment to stuff. And I mean, I don't even really make adjustments. If somebody is someone that has like their period makes things wonky, then usually even then I'm going to be like, let's just give it a week. And like,
Which
we'll,
is probably most women. Like
right.
most women's period impact their weight to some degree. I don't know that I've ever had any that I've worked with where like menstrual cycle and weight just keeps doing everything exactly the same. It's almost always somewhere between like a 1 to 3 pound shift in terms of water weight, sometimes more depending on the person.
I had somebody actually on Tuesday who checked in and she had just started her cycle or just finished her cycle. And I had like the full 6 days with the asterisks, and they were all within like 0.2 of each other. And I was like, and she's in a deficit. So I was like, we're not changing anything. I can't wait to see this next week with no fluctuations. I was like, something big is coming our way. Like, buckle in and just keep it up.
Yeah, but I mean, that's when they're in a deficit and they're dieting. That one, like if your weight's normally up during your cycle or something
That's
like
normal.
this, and then it's normalized during that
Yeah.
for once because you're in a deficit, you're like, yeah, we don't need to change anything. We're probably good.
Yeah.
But
We're smooth sailing.
it's tough because we're all like sort of to some degree emotionally invested in that. Like we say, oh well, if the weight's not moving, how are we being successful, or how are we making progress, or what about this and that? And so like I get it. And I don't want to you can't discount weight completely. At some point, if you want body fat loss, weight's gonna need to change. Um, I don't know anybody that's I've never maybe someone exists, but I don't think you've ever met anyone either that they could keep their body weight the same and trade out all the body fat for muscle for weight and never have weight move. Um, at some point, it's going to happen because at some point that muscle building starts slowing down
Yeah.
and that's when you start seeing the difference more so, even if weight had been staying pretty stable with measurements improving. But that's the other thing is normally those measurements will improve too. So you're like, all right, weight's really stable, but measurements are getting better and we're seeing visual changes to some degree. We're definitely got a good week from the cycle week this week.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. What have we not talked about with sickness? We've talked about returning to training. We've talked about if somebody can't get food in, what we want them to prioritize with. But so I know a question that I see a lot is like if somebody's been sick and so they've dialed back their activity in response to it, they'll want to know should they automatically lower their calories. And so if you've talked to somebody, let's say they've got like a chest thing going on, and so they're like, if I go do cardio, I can't stop coughing. So I'm not doing cardio, but I'm like going about life. Should I lower my macros because of decreased activity this week?
Uh, fuck, I hate it. It depends, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. Are you in a fat loss phase? If the answer is no, then no. There's no reason that you need to do that. Um, the likelihood that you're going to have so significant of a difference in the short amount of time that you need to worry about pulling calories back 100 or 200 a day, like one, it would have to be a really big difference in activity, which if you're not dieting, there's probably no chance of that happening. Um, and even so, there's plenty of times where that extra recovery can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Again, go back to GI bug, you're probably not digesting things that are either not staying down or moving through as quick. Your calorie intake probably isn't quite your calorie intake because you just don't have the same time to digest, get nutrients out of that stuff. Um, so, do we need to drop calories to um, make up for that? I say no. And I treat people post surgery and post op the same way. I never preemptively drop calories. Maybe if it's like a post op thing and we see that, some issues are happening and, weight gain's happening and it's not controlled well because of the aftermath of that and the effects and impacts, maybe. Um, if you're in a deficit, I'm still like, fuck no.
Right.
Um, because you're already in a place where you're immunocompromised. If you're dieting hard, your calories are low. You're doing a lot of cardio. So any kind of prep clients, anybody that's like really, really pushing hard for a date or an event or whatever, you're already immunocompromised. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna put you in a worse place when you need to recover? Nah, nah, dude,
Yeah.
not me, homie.
Yep. And I think it's another one of those things where it comes from being nervous with stuff. Like something's going to go bad if they don't react right away. But I would rather err on the side of caution, and the caution being, let's keep every bite of food on your plate like that we can. And like just kick the can 1 week and then see how things go, and then we can adjust from there. And I've had some people like post surgery or things like that where we just wound up holding and like we never went up We never went down. We just stayed very careful so that we didn't have to make any adjustments from there. And I'd say usually with other people, I probably like the vast majority of times, I think we usually get away with it for like a couple of weeks. And then they can usually get back to activity. Like by the time we start to be like, something's happening, they can usually start adding in like walking again or something like that. And we can bring things up. And so I think it can be really scary, especially like if somebody's told, like, okay, we have 6 weeks of recovery, or you have, like I had somebody who had, shoulder surgery recently. And so the surgeon was like super dramatic to start with and was like, you're not going to do anything for 8 weeks, nothing. And I told him, like, I don't know, I had that surgery. Like, it's not going to feel very good for like the first little bit, but like once you're comfortable walking around in your sling, that'll probably feel kind of nice actually. And then it gives you like that natural little bit of movement that can be helpful. And so we were able to get to a place where we were still getting back to like steps. We weren't doing like huge chunks at a time, but it was like little bit of stuff so that it could tolerate and support things like PT and stuff like that. And so again, I think like just a vast majority of the time having a much more restrained response to things and trying to keep life maybe close to normal with some slight adjustments as needed is usually the best response.
I think what that comes down to is that people very much so overestimate the calories burned from their activity, like weight training or structured cardio a lot of the times. Unless it's like a you. If you're doing marathons and shit, you're burning a lot of calories there. Let's be real. But if you're doing 20 minutes of cardio 4 times a week, or 2 hours total cardio, it's not that significant of a calorie change overall for the week. And I think they underestimate what normal steps and movement can do. So like it was different from my past 2 surgeries, right? My stomach surgery, they were like 12 weeks, no lifting anything over 20 pounds, period. But you can do all the cardio you want. So it was very easy for me to keep steps. Like that one was different because I couldn't get food in with like swallowing. I had to like relearn all that. So it was like liquid diet. So I lost a ton of weight and I was like, this sucks. I think I lost like 20 pounds after that one, just because of the inability to get food in. But the ACL, I couldn't walk. I had no weight bearing on my knee because the meniscus was torn through, and that repair is always 6 weeks, no weight bearing, and then working after that. So that one was different. And I feel like upper body, different than lower body if you have a surgery.
Yeah.
Because if you can't walk and it's like, no, 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 don't do that. Now that is and can have a big impact on your total daily expenditure. And that might be a little bit different of a consideration. But if you can walk and do stuff and go outside and have normal movement, I think it's very reasonable to say, hey, let's keep those calories in for recovery purposes. Even with the ACL stuff, I would still try and keep calories where they're at. But like I said, people really they overestimate their, physical activity expenditure, and they underestimate their normal day-to-day movement expenditure. And I think that's why the whole walking to lose weight thing is so powerful because it challenges that normal, oh, I have to go run. Oh, I have to go do the elliptical. Like, no, no, we can burn a lot of extra calories just by being movement focused throughout the day.
Yeah. I listened to this podcast the other day from it was Mel Robbins podcast, and I forget the doctor's name because I'm the worst. But she's an orthopedic surgeon. And so it was about like longevity and like all this different stuff. But she was talking about how if humans were meant to sit down like as much as we do, that we would be built like mushrooms.
Ah, I love mushrooms. That's like the best drug.
And like they're supposed to see, I was told in college by a friend that he looked at me one night and was like, you're the kind of person who should never do shrooms. And I was like, you know what? I feel like if someone gives you that advice, it's advice you stick with. And
I
I
disagree.
stick with it. I've never
I absolutely disagree.
about taking that advice or that
Yeah,
I would be a bad one for shrooms.
that one. That one.
Oh,
But anyways, on to the non-drug topic. So here's the other thing I think.
vegetables, right? Wouldn't they still count?
No, no, they don't count as vegetables. They come from poop. Um,
Ew. See?
yeah,
See, I don't know anything.
typically people are getting their psychedelics from poopy stuff, I think, right? They clean them, but whatever. Anyways,
Moving
other
on.
topic. So here's the other thing I think people get inverted. And I would call it the food pyramid of fitness, but like the priority pyramid of fitness, right?
Okay.
Your bottom biggest piece of that is your underlying general health.
Mhm.
Like, and I think everybody gets that. So many people get that wrong. They're like, oh no, if I don't get my workout in, everything's effed. But like, no, no, no. What happens if you like give yourself COPD from smoking? Like, that's a way bigger issue, right? What happens if you can't breathe and you pass out and drop, the squat bar on you? That's a way bigger issue. So I really try to remind people that your underlying general health is the absolute cornerstone and foundation of any health and fitness goal, period. It's the health always predicates the fitness. And that's where I think a lot of people get lost also is that they let the fitness try and predicate the health. Or they try and they get into this idea that the health is based on the fitness. Sure, they go together. Sure, they're connected. But being healthy versus being a fitness competitor or a top athlete, those are two very different things. And that's like one of the things we talk about a lot is, yeah, you can be healthy doing two weight training sessions a week.
Mhm.
You can be healthy doing plyometrics and calisthenics and these others. Like there's a lot of ways to be healthy. The fitness stuff, the body composition stuff is a different thing, but it is absolutely dependent on that general health base.
Right. Right. Because it's very easy too to take those things and have them not be help. Like the run, like my running, right? Like I saw somebody recently who had shared information that during they were doing a marathon cycle in like a bulk, which sounds crazy, but she was doing these two things together. She went and got blood work done, and
Yeah, that
she
sounds awful.
I know. But she, with her calories were really high, was like her reason was sharing a lot of that. And she was testing as like pre-diabetic with stuff. And then she shared like the other side of things when you see like people in prep, like where stuff so even with like fitness and those kinds of goals, there's the spectrum, right? And you can take it and have it be like we can be doing too much. We can cause problems with the running. We can cause problems with training, even if we're doing it like right. Like most people think like marathon training, most people gain weight. Like if you're, it's not necessarily something where you're going to lose weight with stuff. It's also something that you can just cause problems because of overuse and all that, because it just takes a whole lot that you're doing. And so even with that, I try to keep in mind with stuff. Like I'm very lucky right now that I've gotten, and I think it's because of training, I have no like nagging injuries. 10 years ago, I had plantar fasciitis and really terrible like calf stuff where I would wake up in the morning and like be crying within 5 minutes because walking around my house was so painful. I
That's not every, I always wake up crying. I
well,
thought that was just how people lived.
right now that's an emotional thing. This was
Uh,
because of my
uh,
feet, you know.
okay.
But and so I feel like when you have some of those injuries and stuff like that too, and I feel like because you've had like a surgery that made you completely non-weight bearing, that you went into your wedding with a cane, right? You have another surgery where you can't
I was
you
walking
can
for
go up.
like 6 weeks. I got to walk for like 6 weeks before the wedding, but yeah,
I
it
mean,
was a fucking cool cane though.
oh no, listen, I'm here for the cane. I'm just saying, like, that affected your life, right? And then now
Oh
you
yeah.
like the stomach surgery that you had had and everything. And so I think that a lot of that stuff takes you back to where then you're like, I want to protect feeling as normal as possible. I want to protect feeling good and not having to be in those situations. And then it goes back to the whole like kind of figuring yourself out like in this space and this lifestyle and everything and figuring out where those like boundaries are with stuff where you can push it but you're not creating like huge detrimental issues.
So I think for me, I was very lucky because I had those kind of found I would say beneficial foundations of how I see the process. That for me, fitness has been about for a long time feeling as good as possible while I'm alive and here on this earth. It's not. necessarily been about being the biggest dude or being the strongest dude. And there's times where, like, yeah, I've really trained to try and put on as much size as possible. And I've trained to be as strong as I possibly could be. But those were just kind of like caveats within the the process of I really want to make sure that whether I'm 35, 40, 45, 50, 60, like however long I have to be on this earth, it's going to be as good as possible. I'm going to have the most ability to feel as good as I possibly can within that. And I think that the surgeries are honestly part of that, right? I was like, oh shit, if I keep doing this on the knee, I'm only going to make it worse. I'm going to continue to not really be able to quite do things the way I want to. Like it kept popping in and out of place when I was rolling with guys that were like 200 plus. The stomach was like, okay, well, I have to do this because otherwise I can get cancer. Lo and behold, that I know it was going to make me sniffle less, that it was gonna get rid of the asthma that I was having, you know. But I knew that it was one of those things where I was like, if I get it done, I will have better quality of life in the long term.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about, all right, this thing's gonna make me feel this way about something. It's like, all right, it's going to improve my quality of life. And I think when you look at fitness with that kind of like priority, what's going to improve my quality of life for the rest of my life, it allows you to be able to, yes, push on the gas pedal when it's appropriate, but also pull off the gas pedal when it's appropriate too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that right there is probably that's like the underlying like way that I would look at trying to deal with stuff through sickness and everything is that if it's going to add to your quality of life that day to try and get in a walk or something, then sure, try it. If your body is telling you like no, quality of life is that I am done with this meeting, I'm gonna go take a nap and I am deucing out, then like yeah, that's probably what you need to do. And looking at it that way, I think has so much more longevity for being able to stick with it as a lifestyle and like something that you can maintain if it's not always a 90-day sprint. You know, as much as I'm obsessed with the challenges and I love them, that's one thing that I always get like worried about for like some people is that 90 days is a long time and it's also a very short time. And so it's this like you really have to get your head right with stuff. And so I like to even think about the challenges and stuff like that. Like this is just a jumping off period. It's not that you're going to do this and then now you've checked that box for 2025. It's like, okay, this is where we're going to get very, very, very diligent and focused. And then we decide, do we want to go to that extent for like the rest of the year? Where do we fall with stuff and things like that? But getting sick, if we're talking about like normal sickness, not something where you've discovered
Right.
that now we're with doctors and like things like that, it's not going to take that long. I think at the worst, they'll say like was a cold can linger, like 6 weeks, which when you're on day 10 and you feel miserable can be like, I'll never survive. But even then, like, shit, it's mid-March. When did that happen? Wasn't it
Yeah.
Christmas like yesterday? Like, how did that happen? And so, you'll get through it. You'll be fine. A lot of the adaptations that happen would require you to be laying in a hospital bed doing absolutely nothing with your life, like on IV calories and using a bedpan. And so if you're not doing that, you're probably solid. And then you're going to feel a bit like a newbie when you get back to it.
And, and I think here's the last point I want to make is that like your ability to have the opportunity to push really hard and have that be beneficial is once again predicated on you having been healthy in the first place.
Yeah.
If you go into a diet, a prep, or whatever, and you're not in a healthy place, it's gonna come up. It's gonna be a problem. It's going to have an impact, and normally not a good one. Um, and so we have to be able to manage like the life stresses and all that. Like stress is its own thing. We've talked about that a million times. We'll talk about it a million more. So like you can't expect to just push through anything and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's not realistic. So at a certain point, you will be doing yourself a disservice by trying to force through it. What did I tell somebody this? I think I said it either today or yesterday. I was like, look, right now we got two different ways to go. You can try and go through the brambles and the thorns and the muck and the stink and the grossness and get there. And I know that path seems shorter. But when you get there, now you're covered in shit and scratches and you stink and it's nasty and doing it was really rough. Or look, there was that paved sidewalk around the way. And was it a little bit of a detour? Sure. But did we still get where we wanted to go? Yup. Now you got there, you're clean, you look good, you don't stink, you ain't all beat up and hurt. Which one of those are you going to be able to enjoy that endpoint at better?
Yeah. And which one are you not going to be like, oh my God, I regret this? When
Yeah.
you're in at the midway point, standing there with thorns in your feet.
Or even just like looking back on it and say like, so not everybody gets to where they want to be on the first diet. Which one of those processes are you going to look back on and not have to be like, oh shit, I got to do this again?
Right.
You know, like those things are important. Yeah, if you're prepping and the only way that prep is 2 hours of stairs a day and 800 calories, like F that. That sucks. If that's what you think prep is, why would you do it? And, other than just to somehow say, oh, I'm tougher than everybody else. Look at what I can do. Versus, all right, cool. What if we can do prep on an hour and a half of cardio 5 days a week and 1,200 calories? Which one of those are you more likely to be able to continue to do long term and like not have to regret as much or have negative connotations with? All right, that's the one I want to take. And
Yeah.
the same thing with the regular diets and working out when you're sick. Like sometimes, dude, just take a step back, give yourself some time to recover, and let yourself have a little bit better connotation with the process overall.
Word. I dig it. I think we covered pretty much everything with when you're sick.
I know. We did a good job. Sorry, Danica.
I know.
Feel better, bud.
I feel bad. I could kind of.
I need her feelings to like inspire me to say dumb shit. You know?
I mean, she carried us through the first half, so
Totally.
let's all send Danica some love. Hopefully by the time this comes out next week, she's no longer in the throes of this because that would stink. And if you guys got any questions, let us know, and we'll talk to you guys soon.